Hello, everybody, and welcome to the September 1st Trips and Traps. I'm Andy Serling, joined by Eric Donovan.
Our last episode of Trips and Traps from here at beautiful Saratoga, and we have 5 races to bring you in this week's segments. The first segment, we'll take a look at some 2-year-old races, a couple sprint races, one turf race, and then the second segment, we'll come back and look at the King's Bishop and the Travers. But let's get started with the third race from Thursday. We're going to look at the 3 Chrissy Cat, a 2-year-old filly maiden special weight.
Yeah, this is not so much a trip. In fact, there's no trip here at all for her in this race. I mean, she breaks a little on her heels, but Chrissy Cat's a horse that you see number 3 that has a real pedigree to go long, and so the likelihood of her winning a 5-furlong race first time out was sort of minimal. And you can see the rider sort of trying to get her in the race, and that's Corey Nakatani. But in general, she'll just drop out. But boy, does she make a big run late.
Yeah, I mean, she just kind of outrun early on, had a brief steady there just to about the 4.5 pole, and again right there at the half-mile pole, just not quick enough to keep up. And the inside, I don't think helped her much either in this spot.
Yeah, I think she probably. It was almost the perfect kind of race for an education. She had a little bit of trouble. She was down on the inside, got bumped around a little bit, a little dirt kicked to her face. It's sort of all you want, and it's not. Listen, every horse doesn't have the same intention going to race. It's not like they don't want to win, and there she is down the inside. Everybody wants to win, but a lot of horses aren't going to be suited to win the races that they're in, and our job is to find the ones that are most suited on a given day, and then find horses out of that race that are more suited to later races, and she's one of them.
And certainly Chrissy Cat should run a lot better next time out with a little bit more distance. This race only 5 furlongs too, so it wasn't even like it was a 5.5 or 6 furlong race. I mean, she just was outrun early on, and it took a while for her to get going. But here she comes back into the screen here in the stretch, and Chrissy Cat's going to make a real nice run here behind a much the best winner in Ali Darla.
Yeah, and I'm not big on gallop outs. I mean, they can matter in some circumstances more than others, obviously. All things have to be taken in isolation, but in the gallop out, she's just blowing by the runaway winner there. Now, the runaway winner there is not exactly a superstar, but she's a horse that had a couple races experience, and Chrissy Cat is a horse I'd love to see down at Belmont Park going at least 7/8, if not a mile in her next start, and in any kind of comparable field, even maybe a slightly better field. I wouldn't mind her moving up. I would be happy to bet on her.
And we'll take a look at our next races from Saturday. Travers Day is race number 2. We're going to look at Penn's Grant, a 2-year-old colt going 6 furlongs in a special weight. Similar kind of thing as with Chrissy Cat the race before. Penn's Grant breaks a little slowly here for trainer Barclay Tagg.
Yeah, I would say in some ways, and there's Penn's Grant, who actually does legitimately break a length to a length and a half slow in this race, as opposed to Chrissy Cat. It's just more sluggish than anything else and just doesn't have speed. This horse gets badly left. Now, she also didn't have much speed, and this is a Barclay Tagg first-time starter, Leal stable, and he just wasn't really ready necessarily for his first start, though he ran well enough.
Yeah, well, he did, and we'll take a look at the head on here as they move into the turn. You just get an idea because he was so far back that you lost him on the pan shot and see how far back he is, about 10 lengths there as they move into the far turn. And the leader in this race and the winner is Fire on Ice, a very impressive first-time starter for trainer John Kimmel. But there's Penn's Grant toward the back of the pack, and going to get floated out a little bit here on the turn, and then we'll get back to the inside eventually. But this doesn't help at all. I mean, the horse was in the 2 or 3 path, gets floated out to about the 4 or 5 path. When we pick it back up on the pan shot at the top of the stretch, Penn's Grant will be back on the rail, and he'll encounter a little bit of traffic through the stretch.
And I think it's interesting. Actually, he's a very professional horse, all things considered, how much traffic and how easily he sort of winds between horses. And Carino Velasquez was very good at guiding horses, as you saw with Hot Summer later in the day when he won the victory ride. It was a race that the dynamics were against the horses. You had a runaway winner and a horse that took advantage of the rail as well. You could also argue that the other horses tired a little bit from chasing, and it made Penn's Grant's job easier in closing. But I think with you showing the head-on, one of the more interesting things about it is why it's important to watch head-ons in races, because if you just watch the pan of this race, you see the horse breaking a little slow, dropping back, and you see it coming in the stretch on the inside, and your inclination to say, well, it was just back of the pack on the rail and made that run at the end. But this is a horse, as you pointed out, had actual trouble in the turn as well.
Yeah, got a little bit bothered on the turn there, and we'll see what he does next time out. I'm expecting a big effort, and Fire on Ice, the winner of this race, obviously a very talented horse.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to betting against Fire on Ice down the road. He is a talented horse, but I think he had real dynamics in his favor. He was also extremely hard-ridden for a horse that won by 10 lengths. And I'm not saying he won't go on and do good things, and he's one of the more impressive 2-year-old maiden winners to meet, but he's getting a lot of hype, and I'm not sure it's quite deserved.
Okay, we'll take a look at one more race in this first segment. We'll go to the turf here. Some 2-year-old maidens going a mile and 16th.
Yeah, this is one of your classic 2-year-old maiden races at Saratoga, and what you had in this race, unlike some other ones, this race was a complete and total meltdown.
A complete collapse, and we'll stop it shortly here and highlight the 2 horses that we're interested in taking a look at here, and we see the 9-horse Sevi in the blue and whites looks in about 5th place right now, and the 6-horse Coach Royal, who's down on the rail. Going into the turn, Sevi's going to get toward the outside. I think, Kent Desormeaux tried to steer him out for some clear ground, and, the horse just took off with him and dragged him up to the front end, and really tough to be able to do that there. You see him making a 3 or 4 wide brush around the turn here, and, going to go up to the lead, and the race does collapse, so this early running by Sevi, isn't a plus in this race.
No, this is an absolute disaster. Now, I'm sure Kent's plan was not to have the horse run off on him. And Kent has ridden extremely well with a limited number of mounts at this meeting. And I think he's over 25% or right in that range with a small number of mounts. I think it's a lesson in turf racing. Now, you have to have horses covered up because they can settle when they're covered up. He must have been having trouble settling them. And Sevi was a horse well met in this race, at least the horse I liked. He went off 3-1. He was the favorite. I think he's a lot better than this race looks. From a dynamic standpoint, he ran. He didn't really collapse until very late in the race.
No, he stayed on very well here and has the lead as they move into toward the far turn. And we see the other horse that we're taking a look at, Coach Royal, toward the back of the pack in there on the screen right now. And the first and third place finishers aren't even on the screen yet. I don't think at this point. There's Coach Royal toward the back. And Coach Royal is going to start to make an early move in this race, perhaps a little bit too early.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think Coach Royal, of all the horses, he's 9th early. But you look at the difference between where he is with about 5/16 to go and the horses that run 1st and 3rd. He was far ahead of them. It's hard to time it. Eddie Castro, I think, a little bit over aggressive, and he's an aggressive rider. But you see him making this move right now. The horses that end up running 1st and 3rd, they're nowhere close yet. They're just getting the picture now.
Yeah, and they're down on the rail in the yellow cap and the red cap toward the back of the pack, and we see Coach Royal and Sevi toward the front of the pack there. But the horses that run 1st and 3rd are saving ground, making late rallies.
Yeah, so you could argue that Coach Royal had a good setup, perhaps moved a little too soon. Don't want to split hairs to be critical, but obviously he could well have won if he's a little bit more patient. But the horse that I want out of this race is Sevi, because Sevi is the horse that made that early aggressive move when he got rank and got outside of horses. If he can be taught to settle and get behind horses and conserve his speed, he's much, much better than he ran in this race. And his first race showed that as well. But he is a horse that's been over-aggressive in his races. Maybe he's just an immature 2-year-old. Maybe he's a horse that takes time. We'll see where Dale Romans goes with him. Going to have horse in New York. He could run him this fall, or he could wait until Gulfstream in the winter.
Yeah, we'll have to keep a look at for Sevi. Always a good thing to keep these horses filed away because, like you said, 2-year-olds here at Saratoga, they could come back right away. They can come back in a couple months. You don't want to miss them.
Yeah, you don't want to miss them, and you want to take races apart and see how were they won, how were they run, and how were they won, and how did that affect the participants. Once again, we can always use your help on Trips and Traps. The email address is tripsandtraps@myrating.com.
Come on back for the second segment.